Okay guys, welcome back. I just painted all the parts, well at least some of the parts. I didn't paint all of them because I couldn't fit all of them in the booth at one time. But anyways, they turned out decent. The paint laid down pretty good. I'm actually happy with how the parts turned out. But if we take a look, I have the car pulled in here. I just have some of the panels just laid on here loosely just to see how they look in comparison to the car. And if we take a look, which I know the lighting isn't the greatest in here, so I did the front bumper, I did the fender, both of them look pretty decent, and then we work our way on back over to the factory paint here. And let me just back up a little bit just so you can get a better view of this. That is not a great color match at all. Now looking at the actual paint job that I did, all the paint laid out pretty good. I have one small run in the paint. It's just gonna be right here on the fender. You can see there's a couple runs right there. So not a big deal. That's something that could be fixable. And then same thing if we work our way on over to the bumper. So two things with this one. One, this is the area that I repaired right here. There was two cracks, one that came down, another that came this way. This actually turned out pretty decent. I'm really happy with this. You can't even really see the damage. I know the clear coat's reflecting quite a bit, so you can't really, it won't pick up what it actually looks like, but there's not really anything going on here. I had one small clear coat run right down here. Again, not a big deal. That's something that would be totally fixable. The rest of this bumper looks pretty darn clean, actually. I'm really happy with how this turned out, minus the fact we're gonna come back to the original color over here, and there's a transition. Here's what happened for the paint on this car. This is a 2016 Dodge Dart, and they only made like two colors for that year that were in blue. Now, this color right here, if you look it up, the color name is supposed to be Laser Blue Pearl. That's supposed to be the color name, so I looked up the code for it online, and I found that the code for it is supposed to be PBJ. So this is the paint that I have here. And you can see the code right here, PBJ, and the color of this is Atlantic Blue Pearl, which that's just different manufacturers will use different names for the paint, so that doesn't mean it's the wrong color. It's still the same code, so it should have matched up. The issue is, upon looking into this, I didn't look at the actual paint code on this. So if we take a look at the inside door here, the paint code, it says paint right here. I don't think this will be able to catch that, but the code for this is actually PQD. Code for the actual car, the car manufacturer that it says for this is a different code than when you look up what the supposed color name is online. So obviously this one is PBJ. This is the one that I ran on the car, and it came out way too dark, as we can see. This is what that is, the Atlantic Blue Pearl and the PBJ, and this is that the new paint code that I just read off from the door that the actual color of the car should be. Now, if you look up the 2016 Laser Blue Pearl Dodge Dart, these are the photos that it comes up with, and you can see from these photos, this appears to be the same exact color, I would say, for the most part. And obviously it depends on the lighting, but a majority rules that this is the same color as this car should be. So that's the discrepancy with the paint. It's not a big deal. It's all going to have to be fixed. The good news is that I did not paint all the parts for the car yet. I only painted half of them because I could only fit half of them in the booth, and it's not the end of the world. They're just going to need to get scuffed up. I don't need to reprime them or anything like that. Same thing with the front bumper. I'm not repriming that. So these are all just going to get scuff padded with pretty much just one of these pads. Everything's going to have to be gone over and cleaned up. And then I had to go ahead and reorder some new paint and some new reducer for it. And it should match up a lot better. So I'm definitely happy to know that I was able to figure out the issue and that this was the actual incorrect paint. And this was kind of just experimental at this point. I was able to see how the paint gun works. This is one of my first paint jobs I did so far for anything. So I kind of know what to do now when I go ahead and get this actual paint I'm looking for. So I definitely feel a lot better about painting this, knowing that I've did it a couple times now. So that should make things a little bit easier, and things should go a little bit quicker once I do this next round. And I don't think I actually mentioned it, but the factory color name for the paint code on this car, it's called Surf Blue. That's going to be the actual color name. Dodge won't advertise that. They name it as something else, but when you look up the actual color name and order that paint for that exact code, Surf Blue is going to be the name of it that you're going to be getting. It's completely different. I don't know why Dodge did that for the Dart specifically. It doesn't make any sense. It's confusing, but long story short, always go by the paint code. Don't go by what you see online. While I'm waiting for this paint to show up, I'm probably going to be just prepping the parts, pretty much just scuffing the stuff down. All my other parts are pretty much prepped. Aside from the rear bumper, just a couple of small Bondo spots that I need a primer over. So that's not too big of a deal, but just an update. Learn from the mistakes. It's not the end of the world. I didn't want to not post it and not show anything. This is what we got. This is what we're working with. So we'll go ahead and we'll fix it and get this thing looking correctly. I have the rear bumper out. I'm not really quite sure where I left off on this. I know that I made the main repair up here, and I worked this area out. This is all smooth, and this is good here. I painted my other parts that turned out to be the wrong color. I didn't end up painting this just because there wasn't enough room, and I was gonna do this in another day. So going over this though, before I want to go ahead and proceed with this, there was some other small scratches on here that I wanted to tend to before we go ahead and primer this or lay any paint down on it. So I added Bondo to all these spots where it needed it. There was actually quite a few smaller minor imperfections in it, but it's all stuff that needs to be addressed. So it looks like I started sanding this side. I'm just gonna go ahead and sand down the rest of these spots over here so we can get this set, and pretty much it should be ready after that because I already did scuff it with the Brillo pad. Maybe I'll go over it one more time, but other than that, this should be pretty much set though. While I have my other bumper out here waiting for some Bondo, I had to do a couple more spots over here on this side. I'm just waiting for that to dry, and then I also touched up some of the corners right on the edges, both sides. There was like a little bit of a spot that seemed to be chipped off right there. So while that's being done, we're going to take a moment to work on the front bumper that I painted. Time to get this prepped. It's going to be sad to see this go because it actually turned out halfway decent and looks pretty good, but it should look a million times better and also match the car like it's supposed to though. When I actually do get around to painting it the second time, I have my paint coming in the next day or so. So looking forward to get this prepped up and also all the other parts, so that way I can spray everything and have it looking nice. I'm just gonna go over it. We're not gonna primer this or anything again. There's no reason to. I already did. All we're gonna do is just scuff this surface up on this paint and take the shine off of this. I do have that one clear coat run over here, so this is gonna need to get ground down a little bit more. Maybe I'll use a little bit of a heavier grit just to take that out of there, so that way I can get the surface smooth over here. You don't want that bump because that will show through if I were to paint over that. But as for the rest of it, I'm just going to be taking the shine off, and that will pretty much do. So I got that one run that was over here sanded down. It's much smoother. It did take a second. I had to use like a 180 grit in order to take it down. I did actually cut through a little bit to the primer, that's fine. That's not a big deal. Now I'm just going over the whole bumper. I have a big old Brillo pad here. This is the 320 grit, I think. And we're just dulling up the surface just like you see right here. This bumper is gonna be pretty much set. I'm gonna be doing the inside door that I painted. We're just gonna work on giving this a quick scuff. My bumper is all prepped up to my liking now. This area is all sanded off. It seems to be somewhat decent, so I'm gonna go ahead, clean this up with a little bit of acetone and a rag, clean up all my areas where there's Bondo on, and I'm gonna be spraying a primer on all those spots. So I have this one right here, just a can primer filler primer. I'm not gonna spray this in the paint booth or anything because I'm not gonna do the whole bumper. I'm just gonna do the spots that I'm repairing. I've just sprayed all the spots. I'm gonna give this about 10 minutes or so, and I'm gonna go ahead and do a second coat of this, and then I'll also do a third coat after that. Now we get to start sanding the fender. I'll go ahead and go over this, give it a nice good scuff over everything, and then this will be set too. So we're back in the garage. I'm just gonna do a time lapse. I'm gonna be setting up my whole area right here and draping my curtains that I have. So I'll just show you what that looks like.